The morning started like any other. Jacob stood by the door, adjusting his tie in the hallway mirror, while I sipped my coffee and watched him from the kitchen. We'd been married for 8 years. Comfortable, steady, reliable. Nothing thrilling but nothing tragic either. Still, lately I'd been feeling something shift inside me, like a silent itch I couldn't scratch. "You sure you'll be okay today?" Jacob asked, slinging his leather bag over his shoulder. "Of course," I replied, smiling lightly. "Go, the office won't run without you." He laughed, kissed me on the forehead and stepped out the door. The click of it shutting behind him sounded louder than usual. That was the moment everything changed, though I didn't know it yet. I walked back into the kitchen and stood still for a second. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Most days I'd dive into cleaning or emails or groceries. But not today. Today something pulled me in a different direction. I wandered into the guest room, once my art studio before life got too busy, and looked at the canvas leaning against the wall. It was half finished, dusty, forgotten, just like parts of me. With a deep breath, I pulled it up onto the easel and picked up a brush. The smell of oil paint hit my senses, awakening something buried. I dipped into the colors and let myself go. Hours passed like seconds. I didn't hear the phone ring. I didn't notice the sun moving across the sky. I was completely immersed. For the first time in years I felt alive. My strokes were faster, bolder, more unfiltered. I wasn't painting a landscape or a still life. I was painting emotion, regret, longing. Oh, somewhere along the way I forgot how it felt to express myself, to do something just for me. At noon I wiped my hands and took a step back. The piece stared at me like a mirror. A woman surrounded by color, her face turned away, wind in her hair. She was escaping something, or chasing something. I couldn't decide. I felt tears prick my eyes. Why had I stopped doing this? Why had I let my passions slip away? That's when the doorbell rang. A sharp, unexpected chime that jolted me back into the present. I hesitated. We weren't expecting anyone. I wiped the paint from my hands and walked cautiously to the door. Through the peephole I saw a familiar face. Our neighbor Daniel. He was holding a package. I opened the door slowly. "Hey Emma," he said, smiling gently. "This was delivered to my place by mistake." I took the box, our fingers brushing briefly. "Thank you," I said, suddenly aware of how messy I looked. "You look different today," he said, eyes scanning the paint on my arms. "Good different." I smiled awkwardly. I was painting. First time in years. He nodded, stepping back. "Well, it suits you." With that, he turned and walked away. I shut the door and leaned against it, heart pounding. It wasn't what he said. It was that someone noticed. Someone saw me. The rest of the day passed in a blur. I couldn't stop thinking about that brief exchange, not because it was inappropriate, but because it reminded me of something I'd lost. Myself. I made a quick dinner, barely touching my plate, my eyes returning to the painting again and again. When Jacob came home around 7 p.m., I was in the shower. He called out a greeting, but I didn't answer right away. I stared at my reflection in the foggy mirror for a long time after. When I finally came out wrapped in a towel, he looked up from the couch. "You okay?" he asked. "You seem distant." He nodded. "I'm fine. Just tired." But I wasn't fine. And I wasn't just tired. Something had cracked open inside me, and I couldn't close it again. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay beside Jacob in bed, listening to his breathing, staring at the ceiling. My mind was racing. I thought about the studio, about the painting, about Daniel, about the way it felt to be seen. I thought about my life. How much of it I'd spent pleasing everyone but myself. The next morning, Jacob left early again. Another meeting, another presentation, another long day. He kissed me goodbye, and I nodded, already thinking of the studio. This time I didn't just paint. I wrote. I danced to music in the living room like I hadn't in years. I pulled out old clothes, rearranged furniture, laughed out loud at nothing. I wasn't breaking the rules. I was breaking free. Later that afternoon I saw Daniel again. He was watering plants outside when I stepped onto the porch. "Hey," I said. "Thanks again for yesterday." He smiled. "Of course. Did you finish the painting?" He nodded. "And started 2 more." He looked genuinely happy for me. "You've got something. You know that." There was something in his tone, gentle, encouraging. I hadn't heard that in so long. We talked for a while, nothing serious. Just art, music, life. Felt easy. I didn't tell Jacob about the conversation. Not because I was hiding anything, but because I wasn't ready to explain what I didn't fully understand. Over the next few weeks, my secret life grew. I rejoined an online art community. I applied for a local gallery show. I even scheduled a photo shoot for my pieces. Jacob noticed the change. "You've been glowing lately," he said one evening. "What's your secret?" Smiled. "I'm just doing things I love again." He looked confused but happy. "Well, keep it up. You look beautiful." But he didn't ask for details. He didn't ask to see the paintings. He didn't seem interested in this version of me. That's when it hit me. He liked me better when I was smaller, quieter, predictable. One night, after a particularly successful painting sold through my new website, I told Jacob over dinner. "That's amazing," he said with a forced smile. "But don't forget we still have bills. Don't go quitting your real responsibilities." That stung. I realized he didn't see my growth as valuable. He saw it as a threat. The more I expanded, the less space there was for the version of me he was comfortable with. And then came the day everything truly changed. I was offered a spot in an art residency out of state. 3 months of focused work, mentorship, and exposure. A dream. I told Jacob and he laughed. "You can't be serious." "What about the house? The dog? Me?" I looked him in the eye and said, "What about me, Jacob?" The argument was long and painful, but necessary. I wasn't asking for permission. I was informing him. I was choosing me. When I left for the residency a week later, I cried as the taxi pulled away. Not because I was sad, but because I was finally fully alive. That summer I created some of the best work of my life. I connected with artists, made friends, found parts of myself I thought were gone. I laughed freely, spoke boldly, lived truthfully. Jacob and I talked a few times. He visited once. But we both knew the distance wasn't just physical anymore. When the residency ended, I didn't go straight home. I moved into a small apartment downtown. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. I opened a small gallery space. Painted every day. Jacob eventually filed for divorce. It hurt, but it also healed. I realized that sometimes we outgrow people just like we outgrow old dreams. And that's okay. What I did while he was gone didn't destroy us. It revealed us. And it rebuilt me. Looking back, that moment when the door closed behind Jacob that morning wasn't the end of a chapter. It was the beginning of the most honest one yet.